Hey guys, YouTuber Minute here. Alright, now here I am with another review of a live action movie based on a cartoon. And now for my next review, this is going to be a review for Inspector Gadget 2. Yeah. So I reviewed the first Inspector Gadget movie last night, yeah. And I did say, well, yeah, that is, admittedly a bad movie. There is, I still do, kind of, have a soft spot for it, because I kind of did like what it was doing. I did kind of like how it was, telling, an origin for Inspector Gadget, and plus how they were, really kind of making the characters kind of, seem like real life people, and not so over the top and silly like they were in the cartoon, particularly with Inspector Gadget and a Claw. Yeah. So while the first film is admittedly bad, there is still stuff that I did like about it, and yeah, and I just really did kind of have a soft spot for that film. Yeah. Yeah, but with this film, with this sequel, the sequel was released in 2003. But unlike the first film, the first film was released theatrically, and this film was not. This was a direct-to-video film. So yeah, so I guess you can say that this is a film that really does fall into the uh, direct-to-video Disney sequels because yeah, it really is one of those films because yeah, it's a sequel, it's from Disney, and it's direct-to-video. So yeah, and even Doug Walker did include this in his Disney December where he was reviewing the direct to video sequels. So yeah, so it really does kind of fall into those. Yeah, like I said, this movie it came out in 2003, and I guess the reason why it was a direct to video was because I guess since the first film really did get a lot of hate and people just really didn't like it. I guess just because it didn't really do very well at the box office or something. So yeah, so they decided to just make the sequel direct to video. Yeah. So yeah, and how is this film? Well, yeah, like the first film, yeah, this is also a really bad movie. In fact, I think that this film is even worse than the first one. I mean, yeah, this film does try to be more like the cartoon than the first film did. And yeah, and as you're watching this, you can see how it is more like the cartoon than the first movie was. And yeah, so I'm just sure that like that there are some people that do kind of say look at it to be better than the first film, but yeah, I really disagree with that because I don't think that being closer to the cartoon improved this film at all. In fact, just yeah, like I said, this film was even worse than the first one. Just yeah, because like I said, it does try to be more like the cartoon, but that just doesn't work for this film, especially as a sequel. I mean, there's just a number of things about it that really just doesn't work, especially as a sequel. For this film, they do change a lot of stuff, like I said, to make it more like the cartoon, but it just doesn't work because it just really just does have a whole bunch of a discontinuity from the first film. There's a lot of stuff in the first film that was changed for this film, and yeah, and it just doesn't work. It just does make a lot of continuity errors for this film as a sequel to the first one, and it really just doesn't work. I mean, maybe if this film was a reboot of the first film, it would have worked a lot better, and this probably worked a lot better if it was actually a reboot from the first film, but it's not a reboot, it's a sequel. So yeah, so these changes to make it more like the cartoon just does not work as a sequel for to the first film. Yeah, so in this film, let me just get some continuity errors that this film had from the first one, and out of the way. Let me just address some of them. For one, in this film, both Inspector Gadget and Doctor Claw are never actually referred to by their actual names like they were in the first film. Of course, in the first film, their names were John Brown and Sanford Skolix, and throughout the first film, they were actually referred to by their by their real names throughout the film. And here, their real names are not mentioned at all. They are just like referred to as Inspector Gadget and Claw throughout the entire movie. Yeah. Plus, also in this film, they do actually refer to Claw as Doctor Claw. But yeah, why are they suddenly like calling him Doctor Claw now? Like, I just really don't understand that because yeah, he was like in the first film, like he did just give himself the Elias Claw, not Doctor Claw. So why are they calling him Doctor Claw now? So yeah, again, like I know that like they are trying to be close to the cartoon, but it doesn't work as a sequel because in the first film he just gave himself the Elias Claw, not Doctor Claw. So yeah, so that stuff really just doesn't work. Yeah. Also in this film, like they did like change up the characters of Inspector Gadget and Claw to make them like more like the cartoon. Inspector Gadget in this movie, he's more like just really a lot more dim-witted, like he is in the cartoon. Yeah, but it doesn't work because yeah, in the first one, like I said, just he really just was like a normal person, and yeah, so and here they've just changed his personality for some reason. I don't understand that. Yeah. Also, like in this film, they actually do try to like hide Claw's face in this movie. Just like they did in the cartoon, how his face was never shown. They do like try to actually keep his face hidden, though it really doesn't work because in this film, like his head is like covered up with a hat. But yeah, throughout the film, like we do see like his mouth and his nose, and at one point shows his eye. So yeah, so it's not really as much as not seeing his face as it is just like not seeing it like his full face all at once. So yeah, yeah. Also, like in this film, Penny also just like in the first film, like I said, well, yeah, I shouldn't really say like I said, but yeah, in the first film, Penny was referring to her uncle as Uncle John, and here, like I said, like Inspector Gadget is just like referred to by Inspector Gadget, and not his actual name, John Brown. So throughout this film, like Penny is always calling him Uncle Gadget rather than Uncle John, which I don't understand. Like, why is she suddenly just like switching, calling him Uncle Gadget now? Yeah. And speaking of which, while I'm talking about that, like something I didn't talk about when I was in my review for the first film is just like, of course, Inspector Gadget is Penny's uncle, not her father. Yeah, something I've always wondered, and this really does go for the cartoon as well. Like, where exactly are Penny's parents? Like, why are her parents just not around? Where are they, and why is Penny like living with her uncle? That's something I've always like kind of questioned, whether it is the cartoon or these movies. So yeah, so I don't know. Yeah. Also in this film, Brenda is not even in this film. Like Brenda's not in this film at all, and she's not even mentioned. In this film, they changed Inspector Gadget's inventor to like a scientist named Baxter. So yeah, so they just changed Inspector Gadget's uh, creator in this movie, which I really don't understand. Like Baxter wasn't even from the cartoon, so why did they just get rid of Brenda and just change the creator? So yeah, so I don't understand that. Yeah. Also, like something else about this film that like some people may like look at as a continuity error, but it also like people can kind of like make an argument for is that they changed the way Gadgetmobile looks in this film. Like in the first film, the Gadgetmobile car it was just like a plain white car, yeah. And in this film, they changed Gadgetmobile's colors. Like in this film, Gadgetmobile is like a purple car with some like a yellow oh in on in the paint job as well. Yeah, so yeah, that is probably something else that some people would also say is a continuity error since he's a different color. But yeah, I am kind of like willing to like overlook that one because yeah, I'm so you can make the argument that like Inspector Gadget just decided to give the Gadgetmobile like a new paint job since the Gadgetmobile was just a plain white car in the first film. Yeah, so they decided to just give the Gadgetmobile a new paint job. So yeah, so I am willing to overlook that change in this film. Yeah, and yeah, and there's just like continuity errors like this, like some more or continuity errors like that in this film as well. So yeah, so it just really does not work as for all these changes as a sequel to the first film. So yeah, so it just has a whole bunch of changes like that in this film. Okay, but anyway, yeah, talking more about the film, this film does like have an entirely different cast from the first film. This time, Inspector Gadget is played by French Stewart. Claw in this film is played by Tony Martin rather than Rupert Everett. Yeah, yeah, and also Penny is like a recast in this film. Penny is played by Caitlin Wax, and yeah, and Chief Quimby and Mayor Wilson and pretty much like everyone else that was in the first film are all recast as well. Yeah, the only returning actor for this film is a D.L. Hewley. He reprising the role as voice of Gadget Mobile. So D.L. Hewley is the only returning actor from this film. Everyone else, like every character that was in the first film, has now been recast in this film. Yeah. So yeah. So and as far as like the new performances go, like I said, French Stewart, he like he is like more like the cartoon Inspector Gadget. So yeah. So if you're looking for like a more an Inspector Gadget that really is more like the original, French Stewart is is more like the cartoon than Matthew Broderick was. Yeah. Yeah, and also in this film, Penny has more of a role in this movie. Like I said in the first film, like Penny really didn't have much of a role at all. She really didn't do anything. Here, like they do treat Penny a lot more like how she was in the cartoon. Like uh, like in the cartoon, of course, like Penny and Brain would be like working together to kind of like solve like the crimes for Inspector Gadget behind his back. Yeah. And in this film, like, while Penny doesn't like really like solve any crimes, like she is actually trying to really like help her uncle throughout the movie. So yeah, so they do give Penny like more development in this film. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, yeah. So I guess like they do like a job like kind of like improving some of the characters, like written better in a sense. Yeah. And as far as like the story for this film, the story for this film is that Claw ends up like escaping from prison, and yeah, and then he like has this plan to pull off a crime of the century, and like he has this plan to uh, like uh, steal gold from the Federal Reserve, and he like has this plan to do it. And for a majority of this film, what it really is how Claw is just having his minions steal everything that he needs to complete this weapon for his plan. Yeah, and in this film, Inspector Gadget, as well as like the new addition in this film, who's like a new gadget model named G2. Yeah, the G2 is like the new invention for the gadget program. She's the new model, and yeah, and so yeah, in this film, a G2, who's played by Elaine Hendricks, like yeah, she is been activated, and yeah, and now it showed that like how G2 really is an improvement over the original Inspector Gadget, and so yeah, so then the chief like puts a G2 on the claw case, but Inspector Gadget still does try to really help so he can really stay on the case as well. Yeah, but he just ends up screwing stuff up, and it really just ends up like and really allowing Claw's minions to steal the stuff that they need to make the weapon. Yeah, the one incident that happened really wasn't his fault, but yeah, I'll talk about that in just a second. Yeah. So yeah, so in this film, yeah, that is really the story for this film, and then yeah, and then eventually, a Claw does succeed in stealing everything that he needs to, and then yeah, then he uses his weapon to help him actually rob the Federal Reserve, and then yeah, then in the end, Inspector Gadget and G2 work together to just stop Claw's plan, and then then that's pretty much the story for this movie. Yeah. So this film story like I said in my review for the first film, how the story for the first film really was pretty complicated, especially for the people that the movie was really geared towards. Yeah, because Inspector Gadget really was a show for kids, and yeah, so kids are of course the intended audience for the film. Yeah, and I think kids would get really unable to really follow the entire premise of the first film. Yeah, here the story is easier to follow, though it is still a kind of a mess. Yeah, well, yeah, I shouldn't really say a mess, but yeah, it still is a little difficult to follow. Yeah, yeah, but at least it is a story that I guess is easier to follow. Yeah, but yeah, like I said, I just really think that this film really is a whole lot worse than the first one. It's just so dumb, and yeah, and it also has really really bad effects. I mean, yeah, I mean even the stuff that we did see in the first one that's back in this film, it really just looks like utter crap in this film. Like the animation for the Gadgetmobile's face, it looks even worse here than it did in the first film. And yeah, and we do like see like some gadgets like reused in this film that were in the first one, and they look worse. And yeah, and they're just like horrible effects throughout this entire movie. Yeah, yeah. And something else that I just really don't like about this film is that there's just some stuff about it that just really seems like very mean spirited. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I'll give a couple examples of what I'm talking about here. Like for one thing, I feel that the chief in this movie, like Chief Quimby, I just feel he's just like way too much of a jerk to Inspector Gadget in this film. So yeah, so I know like in the cartoon, like Chief Quimby like was like constantly kind of like annoyed with Inspector Gadget, but yeah, in the end, like he always did praise Inspector Gadget for getting the jobs done. Yeah, and in the first film, like while he didn't really take Inspector Gadget like seriously at first, he wasn't like entirely like a jerk to Inspector Gadget. He just like still was like acting like very professional towards Inspector Gadget when he was just like saying how he really like wasn't like a real policeman or anything. Yeah, but in this film, it just seems that like whenever Chief Quimby is like interacting with Inspector Gadget, it just seems like he just really does want to just kill him. He's just such a jerk to Inspector Gadget. Like anytime he's on screen together with him in this movie, it's like he's always yelling at him and he's always angry. Yeah, and there's even like a scene in the movie like after one of like Claw's plans to steal one of the items for his plan antecedes, like he like ends up like taking control of Inspector Gadget through an override chip. Yeah, and he just causes Inspector Gadget to just go out of control. And when Inspector Gadget like shows to the chief that it wasn't his fault, the chief still is like was mad at Inspector Gadget and even like relieved him from his police duties. So yeah, so it just seems that throughout this entire movie, like whenever the chief does see Inspector Gadget in this film, he really just always is like just like such a jerk to Inspector Gadget in this movie. So yeah, so I really don't like the like Chief Quimby in this movie. Yeah. And another example is just how like Inspector Gadget really didn't seem to really be taking Penny seriously in this movie either. Because throughout this movie, Penny is saying how she really does want to like solve crimes along with Inspector Gadget, and yeah, and she's always like trying to convince her uncle to let her come with him to help him. But yeah, he always is just like saying no. He's just telling Penny how she's too young and just to stay out of this and all this other stuff, and it really does get like really annoying, and it really does make him seem like kind of like an asshole to Penny. Yeah, there's even like a part in the movie like after Inspector Gadget gets relieved, Penny is really like trying to assure Inspector Gadget that they can get him his job back, but he's just says no, and when she decides to do it herself, he just tells her no to stay out of it. And Penny was like begging her uncle just to give her a chance to prove herself, but he just still like said no to it. And yeah, and it really just really makes him seem like an ass. Yeah, it just seems like he really has no faith in her, and he even says like shows like Penny was just like really hurt that her uncle just didn't seem to really have faith in her, and she just runs off crying, and he doesn't even do anything about it. He just continues to do what he was doing before. He doesn't even try to assure her that that's not the case. So yeah, so it really just kind of like makes Inspector Gadget very unlikable towards Penny throughout this film. Like he does like eventually like come around when he learns that Penny was right, but just seeing everything that he was doing, just like not taking Penny seriously and just always like blowing her off, it really just makes him very unlikable throughout this film. So yeah, so stuff like that just really does make this movie kind of mean spirited. Yeah. So yeah, so so I could just really like go on and on about like the stuff that I really don't like about this film. Like there's really a lot to talk about, but yeah, I think I really have made my point about it. So yeah, so there's really just a lot of stuff about this movie that really is just like so bad, and like I said, it really just does not work as a sequel to the first film. So yeah, so yeah. So I just really do find this film to be much worse than the first film. So yeah, so I would give this film probably like a 1.25 stars out of 4. All right. All right. So yeah, so I'm already like 20 minutes into this review. So yeah, so let me just talk about the premise of the movie. All right. So as the movie opens up, it does show like how, like ever since Inspector Gadget captured Claw, like there really hasn't been a lot of crimes to solve in Riverton. Yeah, and he's really just like doing like a like arresting people for some very like small stuff. Like there's like it starts off with him like pulling a woman over because he feels that she was drag racing and ends up arresting her, and it turns out it was actually Chief Quimby's mother. Yeah, and it shows how Chief Quimby is just getting so annoyed with Inspector Gadget, always like committing like arresting people for such small stuff like this that. Yeah, he's just really like saying that Inspector Gadget really has to stick to solving real crimes. But yeah, Inspector Gadget was just telling the chief that like all the real criminals are away in Riverton Prison. And I guess you should also mention that throughout this film, it also does show how Inspector Gadget really is dealing with like a whole bunch of glitches with his gadgets throughout this movie. Like he calls upon like certain gadgets, but a different gadget ends up coming out a lot of the time. Yeah. Yeah, and then it shows how Claw ended up like escaping from prison. Like it shows how like outside of the prison, like showing like the Claw emerging from underground. So how he actually did get underground, like I really don't know like how that works. Yeah, yeah. Then when the police and Inspector Gadget found out about Claw escaping, they then started to look into it. Yeah, yeah. Then eventually, then Inspector Gadget's inventor in this movie, Baxter, ended up unveiling like the new Gadget model, well, known as Gadget Model 2 or G2 for short. Yeah, and Baxter explained how like G2 is similar to like the original Inspector Gadget, but unlike the original Inspector Gadget, as he's still part human, G2 is entirely all robot. Yeah, and G2 is actually like a pretty cool character. Like it shows how she has like some pretty cool gadgets. How she has like a boomerang air pistol, oh, that comes out from the top of her head, and she has like some like a net shooters that like come out from her forearms. Yeah, so G2 does have some pretty cool gadgets in this movie. Yeah, and it also like shows how like unlike Inspector Gadget, how he always has to like summon his gadgets by saying "Go Go Gadget." G2 doesn't have to do that. So yeah, due to like G2's advancements from the original Inspector Gadget, the Chief Quimby then decided to just have a G2 to go like in Inspector Gadget's place on the case to find Dr. Claw. Yeah, yeah. And it shows like in this film how Dr. Claw, like his hideout is like an abandoned bowling factory, and it is explained how like after his arrest in the first movie, um, uh, he like his empire from the first film was confiscated by the police. Yeah, and he did have this plan to pull off a crime to end up like stealing gold from the Federal Reserve Bank. Yeah, yeah, and then he told like his minions that he had plans for them to build a super weapon to help them out, and they had to gather all their equipment in the next 10 days because the satellite, I, I, for like the X Force One satellite, would be overwritten by that time, and they had to steal equipment like ion fuel cells, a protoid laser, and a ruby. Yeah. So then, yeah. So then, yeah. Then eventually, Penny, like going behind her uncle's back, then discovered Claw's minions talking about how they have a plan to um uh, to have a heist to go to a warehouse the following night to steal a piece of the parts they need for Claw's super weapon. So then, yeah, then and and the chief then planned a stakeout with G2, and then yeah, then Inspector Gadget then like snuck in and tried to give G2 some backup, but yeah, it ended up like going wrong, and then like he ended up like getting himself and G2 like tied together, which allowed Claw's minions to steal fuel cells. Yeah, yeah. Then yeah, then later on, um then like Claw then had a scheme to steal his the next item, which would be a protoid laser that would be unveiled at a science convention happening. Yeah, and then yeah, then they sent like a note to Inspector Gadget telling him to go to the science convention if he wants to catch Doctor Claw. So that's what he did. Then yeah, then at the science convention, it showed how like Claw's minions implanted like an override chip onto Inspector Gadget, and that allowed Inspector Claw to control Gadget like a puppet. So then, yeah, so then at the presentation unveiling the Protoid laser, like Inspector Gadget then just like went like totally out of control with his gadgets, yeah, and as everybody was distracted by it, that allowed Claw's minions to steal the laser. But Penny, who also was like in disguise at the science convention, saw it, and then she sent Brain after them to try to stop them. And while the minions did end up getting away, uh, Brain ended up stealing one of the minion shoes. Yeah, yeah. So then, yeah, and then yeah, like I said, and then like the chief then was just like had enough of Inspector Gadget screw ups that he ended up like relieving him from his police duties. Yeah, yeah. But then yeah, then Penny and Brain then tried to like study the shoe to try to get more evidence on where Claw's whereabouts could be and what he's really up to. Yeah, and then yeah, then they eventually then discovered that the shoe who actually came from like the old Bullright factory that Claw's hideout was at. Yeah. So then yeah. So then yeah. Then it came time for like a Claw and his minions to retrieve the final item for Claw's weapon, which was a ruby. He, he that was 50,000 carats. Yeah. And yeah. And then the ruby would be on display like at Mayor Wilson's a fundraiser at the Riveton Museum. So then, yeah, that night, then, yeah, Claw and his minions then like infiltrated the fundraiser. Yeah, you kind of like had a funny moment here where like Claw's minions were like performing as a band at the fundraiser, and it showed that like they were like playing like like the instruments that they were playing didn't even match the music, and it showed like the music was like playing behind them. So yeah, that was like kind of a funny moment. Yeah, but then yeah, then eventually then Claw and his minions then and like they like went ahead with their plan. They first like just set off laughing gas to like get everybody distracted and occupied. Right, and it just had like everybody in the fundraiser laughing, and it showed how G2 was like unaffected by the gas and tried to stop Claw, but yeah, Claw like had like ended up trapping G2 with a large magnet, yeah, and then that allowed Claw to then steal the ruby. Then eventually Penny and Brain then went to the Bullright factory to investigate, and then Penny then like just looked at everything that Claw had, and then she eventually like figured out what Claw was planning to do. Then as Claw and his minions then arrived back at the factory, then they eventually spotted Penny and captured her, but Brain was able to escape. Then yeah, then then the mayor then was just like so upset with what happened that she decided just to shut down the gadget program. So then the and then Quimby then just took G2 to deactivate her. But then yeah, then Inspector Gadget, who was a valet at the museum, then just feeling that G2 was just a scapegoated, then he went back to Baxter's lab and reactivated G2. Yeah, and then yeah, then it showed like how Inspector Gadget. Well, yeah, when even like when G2 was first unveiled, like it showed that Inspector Gadget had feelings for her. Yeah, but then yeah, here like it was like shown that like G2 realized that Inspector Gadget does care for her. Yeah. Then Brain arrived, and he, and when Inspector Gadget like realized that like Brain was trying to tell him something, but he couldn't understand Brain, of course, since he was a dog. Then he used like a bark translator that Baxter showed him at the science convention to translate Brain's barks to English, and then yeah, then he eventually did, and then yeah, then Brain just explained to Inspector Gadget and G2 that Claw kidnapped Penny, and he just told them about Claw's plan, and then Inspector Gadget then realized that like Penny was right with everything that she was trying to tell him before. Yeah. So then Inspector Gadget and G2 then teamed up to save Penny and stop Claw. Yeah. And then the following morning, then Claw then like revealed his weapon to all his minions and Penny, which was a time displacement laser. And then when they fired the ray, it ended up just freezing time in Riverton. Yeah, yeah, and yeah. Then Inspector Gadget and G2 were able to get out of Riverton before the beam could hit them. Yeah. Yeah, and then afterwards, then Claw and his minions then went to the Federal Reserve and attempted to steal the gold. But then Inspector Gadget and G2 then arrived. Claw took Penny, and then Claw and a couple of his minions drove off with Penny, and yeah, so then Inspector Gadget then decided to go after Claw. G2 dealt with the rest of the minions, yeah. But then as his glitches were still happening, it, G2 then just saw how frustrating it was for Inspector Gadget. So then G2 then decided to give one of her chips over to Inspector Gadget to help him actually function correctly. So then after they swapped chips, then Inspector gadgets were all functioning correctly. So then Inspector Gadget then went after Claw. Yeah. Then eventually then Claw then just decided to release Penny inside of a bomb. Yeah. So then as Inspector Gadget went after her or to save her, there was another funny segment where Inspector Gadget then just plowed face first into a stop sign, and then when he fell out of it, he saw the dent in it, and then he just said, "Who put that there?" Yeah, that always gets a laugh out of me. Yeah, but yeah, he was able to free Penny from the bomb just in time. Yeah, and so then G2 then arrived on scene, and then with all of them reunited, they then went to stop Claw. Yeah, then Inspector Gadget on a bridge then just fired like some bubble gum onto the road. And then as Claw and his minions drove over the gum, they then ended up getting stuck in it. And then Claw's minions then tried to escape, but they ended up getting stuck in the gum and fell into it and then surrendered. Yeah. And then Claw then was able to escape in a rocket pod that was in the truck that they were in. Yeah. Then Claw then just told him that I'll get you next time, Gadget. Yeah. And then Inspector Gadget, G2, and Penny then activated the laser to unfreeze Riverton. Yeah. Yeah. And then in at a ceremony at City Hall, showed how Mayor Wilson and the Chief thanked Inspector Gadget and G2 for saving Riverton and stopping Claw, and awarded them um, heroic medals. Yeah, and Inspector Gadget was also reinstated into the police department. Yeah, yeah. Then Inspector Gadget also gave credit to Penny for her help help in the team and awarded her a medal as well. Yeah, yeah. Then outside of the city hall, then Inspector Gadget and G2 then just thanked each other for their help and look forward to further teamwork. And then then you saw hearts shot flashing on both of their hats, and then they ended up sharing a kiss. And then Inspector Gadget, like the first film, had fireworks blasting into the sky, but this time it was from his hat. Yeah, and like the first film, you saw the Inspector Gadget logo, the G, but this time there was a heart along with it. Yeah. Then the movie then just ended showing a a firecracker landing right in front of Chief Quimby and Mayor Wilson, and then it then just ended up exploding. And then it just ended with Quimby and Mayor Wilson just shouting "Gadget," and that's how the movie ended. So yeah. So like I said, I mean, this film is just really, really bad. I mean, you do get a few laughs throughout the movie, and it does try to be closer to the cartoon, but like I said, just it really just doesn't work as a sequel to the first film because the first film just it really did change a lot, and now they change it again to make it more like the cartoon, and it just really doesn't work as a sequel. Like I said, it probably if this film was actually a reboot instead of a sequel, it probably would have worked better. But it is a sequel to the first film, and just all these changes really don't work. And like I said, the stuff with between Chief Quimby and Inspector Gadget and Penny, it really is just mean spirited, and like I said, just bad effects, and it just really gets very, very stupid. So yeah, so like I said, this really just is not a good film at all, and I really do find it to be even worse than the first film. So yeah, so like I said, I give it a 1.25 stars out of 4. So yeah, so yeah, despite the fact that it does try to be closer to the cartoon, I do like say that the first film is better, and I will, and yeah, and I would definitely prefer to watch it over this one, definitely. All right, so yeah, so I guess that's what I can say about it. Yeah, and as far as the future of Inspector Gadget goes, like they did do like a newer Netflix Inspector Gadget series that like was released in 2015, but I haven't seen that, so I don't know how that is. But yeah, and now I have also heard that there's now a new Inspector Gadget movie in development as well. I don't haven't really like heard anything about it yet. I don't know exactly when it's coming out. I just heard it's in development right now. So yeah, I'm not sure when it's gonna come out, but yeah, and I don't know if it is gonna be like an animated movie or live action. So I really don't know much about it, but yeah, hopefully that like this new film they'll actually do better with it, and it will be like a better version of Inspector Gadget than these two films were. So yeah, so we'll just see what goes on whenever that new film comes out. All right, yeah, but yeah, so I guess that's all I can really say about it. All right, so this does it for my review of Inspector Gadget 2. So I hope you guys did enjoy this review and stay tuned because I do have more of these reviews coming at you. So yeah, so stay tuned for more of these reviews coming. All right, but yeah, so hope you guys did enjoy this review. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.